Welcome back to Getting Out Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. I've been super excited for this conversation. I'm joined by Dan Barrett, the head nerd at AdWords Nerds. That's how he describes himself. He is the world's largest Google partner agency working only with real estate investors. He's managed over $5 million a year in Klein ad spend, found hundreds of real estate client deals online for his clients, and has been behind extensive industry experimentation and original research. He's worked with so many investors and companies, including some very big names. And I'm super excited to once again be joined by Dan Barrett. Welcome to the program, Dan. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I know you have your own podcast, which maybe we'll get to, the REI Marketing Nerds podcast. It's a great show, and you run the Search, Click, Convert Bootcamp and so much more. Dan, you've got a lot on your plate, but you're really good at all of it. Welcome to the program. Let's talk a little bit about you and how you got into this sort of secret recipe of AdWords and developed such a great reputation.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I got into real estate investing as a way of trying to find a lot of focus. I really thought early on when I started my business that I wanted to be the best in the world at something, and decided that the best way to do that would be to really focus in on a particular type of client or a particular use case. So I ended up in real estate investing kind of by chance. And in terms of how we develop the secret sauce, I'm actually a pretty firm believer that nothing good is secret. So my big kind of addition to this field has been mostly pulling stuff in from other fields. I pull a lot from theory of constraints, which was a manufacturing improvement process methodology. I pull a lot from complex systems theory, like Dave Snowden's work and the Cynefin framework. And we apply those things to what we do. I think a lot of marketing people really only learn from other marketing people, and ultimately that kind of limits what they're capable of seeing. And so we try to bring a real multidisciplinary approach to what we do, and it's worked out really well.
It certainly has indeed. Again, you have become the subject matter expert. And again, I'm chatting with the head nerd at AdWords Nerds. It's Dan Barrett. So Dan, you mentioned earlier your interest in investing. So how is online marketing similar, if you will, to investing? What have you been able to, on that same theme, been able to sort of translate over?
Oh, that's a really cool question. So I actually think that investing, and you think of it in terms of real estate investing, or you could think of it in terms of stock investing, or really any kind of investment where you're looking to get a specific return. It has a lot to do with online marketing. But the kind of online marketing that I do, for example, is paid ads, typically via Google or Facebook or Bing or whatever. And when you are getting into that kind of marketplace, you have to constantly make decisions that are based on risk and your tolerance for risk, right? You have to say, okay, I'm going to put a certain amount of money into a certain campaign or a certain keyword. And then I've got to think about what that, potential utility is going to be. I got to think about how confident I am that that utility is going to appear. I got to think about what I could stand to lose. And so really investing in online marketing and business in general boil down to smart and rational decision making, and understanding that you might be in situations where you don't have enough information to be 100% certain about anything, and knowing what to do in that situation. So to me, it's all related. It's all a matter of kind of feeling that connection to reality, constantly updating your belief systems, and trying to be as objective as possible about the data that you're getting back and acting accordingly.
Absolutely. That's so helpful. You, again, have been following the real estate investing world, and you certainly have been associated with the best in the industry. But you've watched the ups and downs, and certainly these past few years, man, it has been a roller coaster. So how has the real estate investing industry changed since you've been monitoring, and not only that, but really been a part of it?
Yeah, I think if you back up and you look at investing as a whole, it typically lags 5 to 10 years behind a lot of the rest of the real estate world. I think that gap is certainly closing, but that's been the case historically. And I think the number one change that we've run into isn't even economic, because obviously there's a lot going on in the economy. The housing market's up or down. We had COVID, all sorts of things that really affected the housing market. But the biggest change is cultural. And I think that's in the sense of whether people even know that real estate investing is a thing. Like when I got started doing marketing for investors, nobody knew what a real estate investing was. And the primary mode of marketing for an investor was simply going to market and saying, hey, I'm a real estate investor. This is what I do. Does that sound good to you? And that was enough, right? But we live in an age today where there are literally channels on cable television that only show people investing in real estate full time. Like it is a form of communication or a form of entertainment, I should say. And so the question for real estate investors today is not so much, will people sell to a real estate investor? It's, will they sell to you instead of all the other real estate investors that are already in their market and that they already know about? And that's a profound shift. It's a shift that most industries will go through. You can think of it as being a solution unaware market transitioning to a solution aware market. And I think most investors are just not thinking about what that transition means. It really means you've got to update your marketing, update your messaging, and making sure that you are always answering that question, why me instead of the investor I'm competing with?
Absolutely. I'm chatting with the voice behind the REI Marketing Nerds podcast, the founder of the Search, Click, Convert Bootcamp, and the exclusive REI Marketing Mastery Program. That's Dan Barrett. Dan, we're a very practical show over here. We like to leave our listeners with real expertise, real tips that they could put into practice in the days and weeks ahead. So let's talk marketing. We've talked about how real estate investing has changed. Let's talk about how marketing platforms are changing and how you and your team at AdWords Nerds have evolved with it. What are the latest and greatest trends that our listeners, small business owners, entrepreneurs need to be aware of, regardless of what industry they are in?
Yeah, I think the single biggest change, I'll stay with online marketing because that's my expertise, but the single biggest change that's affecting every single business and every single industry is the move away from sort of advertiser driven advertising or, situations where you're going to be in control to situations where either AI or algorithms or machine learning programs are going to be in control. If you think about Google Ads, when I got started, the way it worked is you set your bids for every individual keyword. That is no longer the case. Now the question is, hey, what bidding algorithm should I use? What machine learning tools am I going to use on the back end to feed more data into that beast and sort of get better performance? And the thing I always tell people to think about now is that the tools that are becoming available over the counter, right, that you don't need to build yourself or pay thousands and thousands of dollars for, the easily accessible consumer-facing tools that incorporate AI or machine learning or whatever are going to be incredibly powerful. But the problem is everyone also has access to them. Your competitors have access to the same tools that you do. In that kind of environment, in that kind of economy, competition is a matter of who has the better data set to feed to those tools. So the thing that I tell people right now, right, as my dad always used to say, best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago and today. So what you need to do right now is think about what are the data sets that you can start building? Who are your best clients? What makes them your best clients? Can you quantify that in some way? Can you make a spreadsheet of all the deals that you've done, all the transactions that you've had? Because in the future, and by the way, I mean like 6 months to a year from now, you will be able to feed that data set to an artificial intelligence or a machine learning algorithm and get incredible performance out of it. But you've got to have the data first. So the time to start building your own custom data set for your business is now. That's my advice to anybody who wants to get forward or get ahead in marketing in the next few years.
That's great advice. And my advice for our listeners is to get in touch with you and your team at AdWords Nerds. Dan, how can we do that? How can we get in touch and follow all the great tips, advice, and information that you've been sharing?
Yep. Best place is our website, which is adwordsnerds.com. You can go there and find all the stuff that we publish. I also have a podcast you can get anywhere where you find your podcasts that's called the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. That's a great place as well.
Fantastic. Dan Barrett, really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to having you back on real soon. I know you've got a lot to share, but definitely following your podcast and following on your website, I know is a great place to start. Dan, appreciate you coming on. We've got some headlines, commercials, a quick break, more small business jobs and entrepreneurship when we return. You're listening to Get Down to Business. You can also find our shows, of course, on AM 560 The Answer, but wherever podcasts may be found. Don't touch that dial, Chicago. We'll be right back.